there, I'm Chicken Farmer. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is for those of you guys that are day one warthunder players. You guys are brand new to the game. This video will hopefully get you started, and then I will have more videos after this, or at least I'll be making more videos after this one that go into more detail in the specific aspects of this game. But this one in particular, I just wanted to get you off the ground and get you started in the game. This game is quite challenging to get into, so hopefully this video will make your experience with this game a little easier. I should have the gameplay from the tutorial in the background, which in the tutorial it goes over the way the crew is laid out, where you should aim. Very useful stuff, definitely worth paying attention to. Although one problem with it is it kind of teaches you to rely on arcade stuff like armor penetration indicators, which arcade mode is a really good equivalent to training wheels in this game, but you do have to think when you are learning to ride a bike, you have training wheels for a time, but the training wheels do come off. That's when you are truly riding a bike, once the wheels come off. A tip I would have is just to try and avoid becoming too reliant on arcade mode's mechanics. I'm going to assume that you've already completed the tutorial and that you've already been thrown into the game with bots. It's a few actual players and a bunch of bots versus nothing but bots for the first match. I guess this is for getting a feel for the game before actually going against real players. One thing to note in this game, there is no skill-based matchmaking. If I go on my main account that's like a level 94, 95, and I play reserved tier, I will go against people that are brand new to the game. Now, the one big problem with that is there are a lot of seal clubbers, so that is to be noted. But just keep in mind, if you're absolutely getting dunked on in matches, don't be surprised that those players are more experienced, and they may even just be trying to seal club. So that is one frustration that you're just going to have to live with when being new to this game. Now, many of you guys will not really know what nation to choose at the beginning. I would highly recommend Germany. And the reason why I say Germany is a really good nation to start out with is because all their tanks are very strong, and they're very forgiving as well. Whereas a lot of other nations require a little bit more finesse than Germany. Germany, you can kind of go in pretty brain dead and get away with it sometimes, but really any of the nations are worth picking. One nation that I will caution you on is Great Britain. They have distinctly weaker vehicles than every other tech tree. There are a few notable nice British vehicles, but aside from the handful of decent British vehicles, the majority of them really do suck. Now in this video, I will obviously be using Germany as an example, since it is the one I would recommend to anyone I introduce to the game. One highly important thing is going into options and going into sound and making sure you crank pretty much everything down except for other players' engine volume. Yes, it'll make your teammates' engines much louder and yours much quieter, and you may even think that you hear an engine and it may be yours, and it's much easier to get tricked by your own engine whenever you do this, but it will just make locating enemy vehicles much easier and give you better situational awareness. Now, I don't want this video to be a settings guide, but I will put a few settings on screen that you either should unbind or bind. The first one being compass in third person. It just basically puts a compass with all the headings at the top of your screen, even when you're not in your gun sight. Usually it's only in your gun sight, but it allows you to still have that compass on your screen, and it's just nice to have. The second is a mark target for squad or set target for squad. It basically is just a ping for you and your squad mates. Very useful. And the third is target tracking for vehicles. I would turn that off. It comes with more negatives and positives, and it's a terrible thing to become reliant on. If you are new, I would just recommend looking up an actual settings guide, because those would be a lot more informative. I just wanted to cover a few that I find to be the most important, and for those of you that are experienced in the game, leave a comment down below on the most important settings to you for new players. Now, when it comes to researching and crews, let's just start simple with your crews. Down here at the bottom of your screen, you can see I have 3 vehicles, which means I have 3 crews. I can buy another crew for 10,000 silver lions. I would recommend, once you get enough money, to buy more crews. To move around tanks across crews, it does cost some silver lions to train that crew to the vehicle. Now, the crews that you have already trained a specific vehicle on, you will not lose that training of that vehicle. You'll be able to switch that crew back to that vehicle at any time. Now, above your crews, you will see a research bar. Click on that and you'll be able to see the entire German tech tree. Now, you'll be able to switch the different tech trees down here just above your vehicles with all the countries. You'll be able to choose which country's tech tree you want to look at, but also once you choose the specific country you want to be looking at their tech tree, you can look at the top of your screen. You could see Army, Helicopters, Aviation, Blue Water, and Coastal Fleet. You'll be able to choose which tech tree of that nation you want to be looking at. Now, for Germany, when you first start the game, you will have access to 3 vehicles, which is the Panzer 35T or the PZ-35. And then you will also have 2 different variants of the Panzer III. Now, what's nice is you'll be able to use both of these reserve Panzer IIIs from the rip. So do note, if you don't have 3 vehicles in your German lineup from the get-go, make sure that you check here and make sure that you have both Panzer IIIs. Now, there are these little subtrees strewn throughout the tech tree. You'll see like the Martyr has 2 different versions. It's not necessary to get the subtree version of that vehicle. The only one you really need to progress is the top one. So don't feel obligated to get the second vehicle in these little subtrees, but some of them are kind of fun to play and sometimes pretty useful to have. Now, the matchmaking that you get into is dependent on what your highest vehicle's battle rating is. At least that's equipped on a crew. Now let's just hypothetically say I had 2 reserve vehicles and 1 1.3 vehicle. I would go into 1.3 matchmaking because it is my highest equipped vehicle's battle rating. So take, for example, if I had 2 1.3 vehicles, but 1 2.7 vehicle, I would be in 2.7 matchmaking. Now, what does that mean? Let's just say I am matchmaking with a 4.3 vehicle. That means the maximum vehicles I could possibly see is a 5.3 vehicle. So it only goes up by 1 point. Now, you'll also notice that each vehicle has a rank. There are 2 things that the rank of your vehicle affect. That is researching vehicles. As you can see, if you scroll over a vehicle, let's just take the Panzer IV-C, for example, and you look down towards the bottom, you can see something called the Max Vehicle Research Efficiency, 1 through 3 ranks. That means that this vehicle is useful for grinding up to rank 2 vehicles, but if I go to research a rank 3 vehicle, playing this vehicle really doesn't do anything at all as far as research goes. So just as a rule of thumb, the battle rating of your vehicle isn't necessarily a direct reflection of the potency of that vehicle. It's more important to look at it as what matchmaking you are going to get into. Not to say that the battle rating does not reflect how competitive that vehicle is, because it does. You want to avoid getting too sucked into that mindset, because then you'll feel completely useless if you're in a slightly up-tiered vehicle. That's one of the biggest complaints I see from a lot of people complaining about up-tiers. Personally, about 8 out of 10 games that I get into are a full up-tier. Do I complain about it? Not at all. Up tiers, along with many other parts of this game, are truly skill issues. That's something I did not realize until actually recently, 5 years after beginning to play the game, and I never realized that pretty much 90% of what happens in the game is a skill issue. It's truly based off of skill. People just bitch and complain about getting into up tiers, whereas I myself get into up tiers 8 out of 10 matches on average, and I don't complain at all, and I play just as well as the people that are playing the maximum up-tier vehicles. It really just comes down to skill most of the time, and just playing smart, playing reserved, and knowing how to engage the enemy as effectively as you can in the vehicle that you are using. It's best to avoid thinking of the battle rating as a direct indicator of how effective a vehicle is. It's best to go for just like decent loadouts at a time. So just a handful of this battle rating of vehicle, a handful of this battle rating of vehicle. So don't just try and grind up one tree and then have like one 3.3 vehicle and the rest of your vehicles be 1.3s. You want to have a nice, decent loadout of similar battle rating vehicles to be able to fall back on in case you get knocked out in your 1 good vehicle or 2 good vehicles. You still want to have a couple vehicles to fall back on that you know are still decently effective at whatever given battle rating. I don't like the way that they explained the modifications. Pretty much what you want to be doing is you want to first get parts and FPE. These are two highly important things with any vehicle. It does not matter what type, what battle rating, nothing. Parts and FPE are the key modifications that you can get on any vehicle. Parts allows you to repair broken things on your vehicle, which will happen a lot. In every single match you will have a broken part, I guarantee it. FPE also allows you to put out any fires that have happened due to getting shot in the engine, transmission, or fuel tank. On lower tier vehicles, it seems to not happen as much as with higher tier vehicles. I'm guessing that's just to ease people into the experience of having to put out fires and repair your vehicle. Those are the two important ones. Now, after you get parts and FPE, it's really up to you as to what you want. Do you want more traction? Do you want more engine power and speed? Do you want a smoother ride so that you're able to hit shots on the move? Stuff like that, it's really up to you. But the two important ones are parts and FPE. One thing to note is about ammunition. On a lot of these German vehicles, you'll notice there is APCR shells. Avoid these things like they are the plague. They're only useful in very, very unique and specific circumstances, which as a new player, I don't expect you to know when and when not to use these things. So just for the time being, just avoid using any APCR shells. On this tank, there are APHE shells, and you can see the damaging effect and the little explosion. Right? You see a little orange explosion. That means that there are explosives on the inside of the shell. Having ammunition that has explosives on the inside of the shell is highly important. As you can see on the APCR shells, the damaging effect is a silver or just like a gray explosion. That means that there are no explosives on the inside of the shell. So just as a rule of thumb, try and use shells that have the orange explosion. It will make knocking out enemy vehicles much easier. Now this is where I'm going to cut the video off. I 100% plan to make more episodes of this beginner series. Hopefully this was enough information to kind of get you off the ground and kind of explain a few of the things that can get very, very confusing to new players. So hopefully it was helpful. If this was helpful at all, or if you enjoyed this at all, or think it was a good video, please like the video. It helps me out a lot. Also, consider subscribing, especially if you are new. I try my best to make my content as fitting for new players along with old players. I can say myself, I am not the best player in this game, but I come at it with a more casual perspective, and that's what I will continue to do in my videos going forward. All right, I think that's it. So yeah, have a chill day.